Good evening, everybody. I'm Justin Drummond. I'm the workshop coordinator for Ohio Educational Theater Association, and we're glad that you're joining us tonight for our second session, which is Teaching Technical Theater Online. Tonight is going to be a little different than last week. Instead of having as much of a presentation, our two presenters tonight, Mike and Rachel, are going to be looking for more of a conversation, hear from you guys. So they're going to present some of the things that they've put together for this school year. And as they go through that, you guys can make use of the Q&A feature and we'll have your questions. And then after they finish going through what they have planned, then we're going to open it up and kind of have more of a conversation this evening. So if you have questions, you can use the raise your hand feature or put your questions into the Q&A, and then we'll kind of answer them when we get to that portion this evening. And with that all underway, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mike and Rachel and let them introduce themselves.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Mike Cordano. I'm at Centerville High School. And just to give you a quick little snippet of where I come from is I teach a career ed class, one of the few technical theater career ed classes. So I just have juniors and seniors, and we are fully remote, online learning, and I'm in day three of 37, as they tell us. There's just get through 37 days of the first quarter, and it'll be golden. So we're at day three. So a little bit of it's crazy, it's different, but we're working through it. So I just have to say that Rachel was my first graduate out of the program, so it's like proud papa moment that I get to host and do a workshop with her. So go ahead, Rachel.
Yes, it is a proud moment. So I am Rachel Robinson, and I fulfill a similar role, but I teach at Stivers School for the Arts in Dayton, Ohio. I too am a CTE career tech education teacher, teaching theatrical design and production. My school is also going to be online completely for the next 9 weeks. So we're both in a pretty similar situation, similar program. So we were able to collaborate pretty well to come up with some ideas for how to do this remotely.
Yeah. So we're going to break it up into two parts tonight. The first thing I'm going to talk about is kind of like that process. It's like, okay, you've been told you're going to do it all online, all remotely. But I have all of these years of units of teaching and curriculum and everything that, there's no way I can do it online. There's just nothing that's going to work technical theater wise. You can't teach technical theater online. And then you take a deep breath and you step back and you start to kind of process how that's all going to work. Interestingly enough, I kind of jotted down my process. I sent it over to Rachel and she's like, yeah, Mike, I did that too. So nothing I'm sure is going to be necessarily groundbreaking, but I'm going to attempt to share my screen. I am not a technology person. So I'm going to share what kind of what we've gone through and then go from there. Justin tells me that these documents are available to you, so you can get a copy of them and do whatever.
Yeah, if you guys have the link that I emailed out this week that had the folder with the resources from Matt and Jason's session last week, there's another folder in there this week that says session 2. So if you want to bring them up on your computers, you can, but if not, you can see them here on the screen and you'll be able to see them later as well.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. As far, for me, I don't like to reinvent the wheel. I'm not into that. So I went back and I looked and I wrote down, I created a spreadsheet kind of geeky like that, but I went in and I wrote down all of my units, all the lessons that I was doing. So did all that. And then I went back and I thought, is this only able to be taught online? if you're doing, hanging stage lighting, building flats or building scenery, whatever it is, that obviously you can't do that remotely. You have to do it in person. So those are kind of out, but then you start to, can I do in person? Can I do some of it in person? Some of it could be done remotely. And then could we teach, there's some things that we could teach all remotely. As a career ed teacher, I teach resume writing and business communication, stuff like that. That's easily done remotely for me. And then you get into some of the other things. It's like, could I teach scene painting online? No, absolutely not. There's no, well, wait a minute. I could probably do like the color theory part of it online. I could probably do that. How could, and then think about how you can do that and that sort of thing. So the easy adaptions, all the stuff that's remotely taught, or you can definitely do that. And then you can easily chop out the only in-person ones. The harder adaptions are the ones where it kind of becomes blended, and you have to, those are the ones, you got to kind of think about and look at them in a different way and that sort of thing. So we did that. Like I said, I did create a spreadsheet to do that. And I ended up doing, so at first I thought, oh, we teach terms and vocabulary first. We have to do that first. So I started my list of what I was going to teach all in that chronological order. And then it's just, I don't know, I kind of think that way. And then you start to think, well, do I really have to teach that? Does that very first topic that I taught for all these years, the first time, does it really have to be that way? So, in my case, no. I am teaching terms and vocabulary first. We're about to get into that. But the next unit that we're going to do happens to be sewing. We're going to do an intro to sewing unit because I can send a few materials home and they'll be able to do that. But we usually don't do sewing until like the third quarter because that's when it kind of aligns with a show, and that's when my costume designer has time when she can kind of like fit it in and she's not freaking out about starting the year and stuff like that. So so you look at that, be open to being able to change things around. And then just kind of, I started to I use Google Calendar, and I just started to slot things in to see where things can go. And if you were on last week, you saw, you heard from Jason Heyman. He is the director at Centerville, and we collaborate a lot. And I would say, well, Jason, I'm teaching, theater terms. I think it's going to take me 2 days. He's like, 2 days? You're crazy, Mike. It's going to take like 10 days. I'm like, ooh. So I really have to kind of think. And I am finding out that it does take more time when you're teaching remotely. So talked about adding 25%. I don't know. On some things, I might bump that up, especially if it's a really hands-on thing, like hand drafting or something like that. That it's probably going to take a little bit more to get the kids into that kind of thing. Let's see. Oh, now I'm fortunate. I think Rachel can chime in on this. Rachel, do you know if you're going to have like a supply pickup day?
We are, but it's like next Monday. So not necessarily in a good enough time for me to get them a lot of materials. But I'm gonna try to set up another date or some kind of way of delivering things to them early on in the quarter, hopefully.
Okay. We are fortunate that we're able to schedule these supply pickup days. So I'm making kits for the students, for like a sewing kit and a hand drafting kit, things like that they have supplies that we can send home. Hopefully, you'll be able to do that as well. That'll help a lot. As far as new activities and projects, really kind of like having to rethink, Because I'll be honest, if I get into the second quarter, I'm going to be really scrapping and scraping for projects that I can do all remotely. I'm going to be kind of getting down there. So I'm starting to kind of like think about, okay, what am I going to, you know, if we go into the second quarter, how am I going to do that? So here were just some things I jotted down to kind of to think about. Were there any things that you were unable to do in the past because you didn't have classroom computers, or there was no way that with your production schedule you could get it in there? Well, you know, we may not have productions this year, so how is that going to work? The other thing is I haven't heard the pushback yet, but let's face it, you know, with performing arts and live events, and when's it all going to go back? You know, for us in career ed, parents are going to start thinking, you know, well, do I want my kid to go to something like that you know, we're not sure about, and all of that. So I'm kind of toying with, you know, how can I spin this to a different vocation? How can it parallel into being an electrician or a carpenter or something like that? So one of the things that I did this past spring when we were thrown into all this was I really looked at things that I never taught before, and I didn't know how to teach them. Like arena rigging. We watched some videos on them rigging in arenas. You know, that stuff that is just so out there when you look at it versus, you know, with high school theater, but and projection walls and video walls and stuff like that. So things like that, you know, really don't even enter into the realm of what we normally do, kind of works well with that. Here's a few things if I'm going to do a new unit. I'm all about hands-on. I'm not big on lectures and worksheets. I want to find a way to make that a hands-on thing. They've strongly recommended not doing paper, not getting paper to them. So I want it to be all digital. I like to have end products as opposed to quizzes and tests. I want to see something. So how can I do that? So I'm constantly thinking about stuff like that when I'm doing something new. The other thing that I'm finding is that when I can break my whole class into small groups and they can collaborate, that it's a lot, one, it's easier on me. Two, I think it's easier on the students. You can definitely, you know, if it's just like 4 of you, yeah, you're going to collaborate and you're going to talk and you're going to comment more in a small group. So whatever this unit is that you're creating, how do you, where are options where you can break out into small groups and make that happen? And then finally, you know, I got Flipgrid in there, and Rachel popped in all this other stuff that I have not used, but Kahoots and Quizlet and those sorts of things, just to kind of make it more fun, because there's nothing more just demoralizing than having 15 or 20 faces just staring back at you, being muted with no expression on their face. It's like, how do we get this? You know, how do we get them to really buy into all of this? And then finally, just some overall goals for the remote learning experience is in there as well. But for me, it's like, how do you get that sense of community? I teach juniors and seniors. The seniors I've already had for a year. We have no problem with that. But my juniors, first time I saw them was Monday. I mean, it's going to take a lot to get that sense of family, that sort of thing. And then also just trying to come up with those hands-on skills, and not doing everything on the screen. It's just, I had one, we finished early with something, and the girl was like, well, what do I do? I'm like, well, we're done. You can go work on something else. You can get off Zoom. And she's like, I don't know what to do. I can't eat lunch for 42 more minutes. I'm like, huh? So, you know, we've got to kind of nurture that as well. And then finally, I think the bottom line, at least for me, is I'm trying to get all of this stuff done remotely, because, I want to get, you know, I so much want to get back and get going on the hands-on and the project-based stuff. And man, when we come back, I just want to, I just want to hit it and do all of that. So it's kind of the process that that I took to try and make that happen. So let's see if I can, yes. Yeah.
Hey, Mike, we had one question that came up, and I'm just going to go ahead and ask it here before we transition over to Rachel. And that was Miriam asked, what type of supplies are you including in your sewing kit? And, what's the goal and the objective for that sewing costume unit that you're doing here at the beginning remotely?
Yeah, so it's that is for juniors, so it's very introductory. We're learning basic hand stitches, and then they're going to make like a small stuffed pillow where they utilize I think it's 3 stitches. And I'm sorry for being kind of vague because my costume designer Jan she's going to kind of lead that for me and take care of that. So she's having me send home some felt, and she said it's easier to learn stitches with floss as opposed to thread because it's thicker and it's easier to see the stitches. So I'm going to be sending home the floss, needle, of course, pins, a needle threader, and a seam ripper because we know that they're going to mess up, and just to give them practice with seam ripping. And what else? Some fiber fill for the pillow, and they'll have to supply their own scissors, and some buttons because we're going to learn how to. She's going to learn how to sew a button on as well. So those are the materials for that sewing kit. And the lesson, when Rachel talks about her spreadsheet of wonder that she has, there under the costuming one, the lesson is it's a Google Drive file, so you can look at it.
Thank you.
Excellent. So I'm just going to kind of build on some of the structure and thoughts that Mike just explained. I think what he said about discussion and communication is super important. These kind of, on that document, he shared those overall goals and objectives. I think if you find yourself not knowing what to do, I think referring to those is just going to be the most important thing to help you figure out what to do and to get back on track. We may not be able to teach certain skills. It may not be quite the environment that we were hoping for, but as long as they are learning something about technical theater, that they are in some way furthering some of their skills, I think that's important. And given this environment, it's also super important that we are giving them a lot of opportunity for collaboration and communication with each other. They're going to be missing that environment in technical theater or any theater classroom, which is incredibly collaborative, as opposed to, I think, a lot of other academic classrooms. So I think students gravitate towards this field because it is, it feels like being part of a family when you're in a class like this. And only being able to talk to your family through a screen is really hard. So no matter what you do, what kind of projects you do, I think as I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing, and I know when Mike was trying to figure out what he's doing, I think including as many opportunities for discussion and collaboration and group work is going to be very, very important. And they will appreciate it as well, I think. They'll get a lot more out of it rather than just sitting and staring at you for an hour on Zoom. So I'm going to share, hopefully, one thing I did not mention at the beginning is Mike has actually started his classes. I have not. So I am not as used to this instruction format, but I'm going to go ahead and share this. Can you see my screen? Yes? Okay, good. All right, so Mike actually started this document, and then I somewhat added substantially to it and put colors in. But we both had just, from things we taught before or ideas that, I've been paying attention to a lot of forums and places online over the summer where educators have been sharing lots of ideas on how to take things and skills that we teach in this content area and making them into a more online environment. I will say, because we were talking about getting materials home to students, if there's a way that you can do that and you can financially afford it and your district will let you deliver or mail or however you can get materials to students, I think it's going to be really important that you try to do that, because there's only so much you can do online and there's only so many Kahoots that a student can do, even though they love it. We put in that document, there's a lot of ways to make your online learning interactive and collaborative, but at the end of the day, they need some hands-on stuff to do. And as we have kind of figured out, even though if they can't be in a shop atmosphere, there's still a lot of hands-on work that they can do. Like Mike was talking about his costume, learning how to sew projects. And there's so many little things like that when they do come back to the theater, they will be able to utilize those skills and build on them later on and when we start doing productions again. So I don't want to go through every single thing on here because there's a lot, but just to sort of explain how it's set up, we broke down technical theater into a series of topic areas, which are all listed across the top. And then in this kind of first section that you see, we put in each box, we kind of put a series of project ideas. So if you look at lighting, the first thing that we put there was an idea for teaching the concept of lighting angles and kind of how that affects audience perception of what's happening on stage. Both angles, and I kind of added a thought on color. Maybe they could do something where they have to use found objects around their house to adjust the color of the flashlight lighting, which is, just uses what they have at home and is a really basic exercise, but it's something and they will still get the point of it and they'll still kind of understand the basics of lighting angles and color. And then so you see just in each box under each category there's a couple ideas. In some there's a lot more ideas. I am a scenic painter and scenic designer, so I had a lot more ideas for painting, which is why that one category is substantially longer than everything else. But a lot of these projects are little skills. Sewing, the flashlight lighting angles, creating a basic light plots. What's something else I'm looking at? Editing sound cues using Audacity or some other kind of audio editing software. Things like that. And you can kind of peruse those as you will. So there's lots of little ideas in these very specific topic areas. And then I kind of added, I know we are career tech teachers, so there's a lot of opportunity to talk about professional practices. In our classes, it's expected, but one thing I was thinking about that Mike said, all of us are adjusting to a much different kind of amount of time in our schedule as educators, because we would normally use so much of that time working on productions, whereas now we have all this time and no productions to work on. So I think, whatever projects or activities that you end up doing, think of ways to kind of extend them or create kind of higher level thinking activities to do on top of what you normally would have done. And I think including projects that are more independently driven for them, maybe pursuing an area of technical theater that they are individually interested in, is a good idea. And then I think also kind of doing some career exploring careers is going to be maybe something they can do, as well as all of these professional practices ideas that we put in here. So things like creating resumes, creating a portfolio, practicing interviewing skills, elevator pitches, how to communicate professionally, both written and online. Those are all going to be really important things. All right, so you can kind of look at those. Maybe they'll inspire some good ideas, but what I want to get to, because they'll kind of help you, if you scroll down, you will kind of see a second set of boxes on the bottom half of the page, and these are resources for some I found specifically for some of those projects at the top, and some were just little things that I found online as I was doing some research. So there's at least a few for each thing, but these are all, I tried to pick things that are largely free, that are largely online and don't really involve downloading a lot of software, because I don't know where you all are. I don't know what kind of computing capabilities everybody has or financial capabilities everyone has. So I tried to create a series of resources that was very user-friendly and open to a variety of people in different circumstances with resources. So the vast majority of these have some kind of free version of the app or the website, if not completely free. And they're kind of still good versions of some of the skills that we want to do. So, you know, I know, for as an example, I know Mike put, there's a student version of Vectorworks that you can do. But there's also some different options for maybe if you're not teaching kind of full scenic drafting, but you still want them to have some basic drafting skills, or have them explore 3D modeling without having to get into all the nitty-gritty, difficult drafting mess. There's a few sites listed here that'll help you be able to do that. So under scenic design, at the top, the first box, Autodesk Home Styler, was actually a really useful app. Before, when Mike was talking through his document, he was talking about how we should be trying to show both students and parents how the things that we teach in our classes can be related to other career fields, just to make it relatable, to make it worthwhile to still learn and teach. And this app particularly, if we're kind of connecting scenic design to the idea of interior design, which they're very much related subjects, that app, if you were planning on doing some kind of project that involves, maybe, I know Mike put some kind of project up at the top where they had to take measurements and draft a ground plan of their room, which is a great project. I usually do that with my elective students. They have to, well, at least when we're in school, they have to draft our classroom and make a proper ground plan of our classroom. But that is a great app for doing that, and it kind of can switch between a 2D plan view and a 3D kind of panable room that you can decorate, and you can change like the style of the floor and the colors on the walls, and you can kind of create a rendering of that space. So there's going to be a bunch of different tools that are somewhat like that. The virtual theater tool is one that I've seen all over the place. Though that one is a subscription option. I don't think the free version is up anymore. And then SketchUp is kind of a more not more difficult, but slightly more complicated version of that. But there's like a million, there's tons of tutorials on SketchUp. There's so many. And if your school has the Google Suite, you have Google SketchUp for Schools free. So you can play in that, you can look on YouTube and find some really basic tutorials so they can do that. So I don't, again, want to go through all these because we want to have time for questions, but there's one page I really want to draw your eye to. And if you go to the far right, I included a category called General, because there were some resources that just seemed like they weren't topic specific. You know, they have a lot of different applications, I think. And the one second from the bottom, there's a link to CTE Online. And this is the kind of CTE system in California, which California is one of the other states in this country that has like a huge CTE system in their state. Tons of programs, lots of support, like Ohio does. And this is like a complete online resource collection. And the specific link that I put there is to kind of their arts, media, design curriculum. So it's got pages upon pages upon pages of like fully developed projects, lesson plans for various topics in the arts. So there's a lot of things that are photography or filmmaking or video editing or stuff like that, but there's also a lot of really good theater history, technical theater projects in there as well as professional practices. So building resumes, conducting mock interviews, all sorts of stuff like that. So if you're looking for kind of one place that has a lot of resources, that's the one you should check out. And the one right below it, which I just added today, the collection of videos for teachers. This is a resource that was actually just shared with me today when I was in some professional development. And it's just a series of resources for teachers to help students with like the basics of using like Google applications and just basic digital literacy. Because I haven't started teaching yet under this form, and I have this fear for some reason, like that there's going to be a lot of problems with students just accessing what I want them to do, just using basic stuff like, you know, keeping all of their work organized in Google Drive. You know, I think in thinking about how I want to approach this year, I definitely want to have a conversation with my students like, you know, personal organization is going to help you. This is a situation you haven't been in before. All this stuff has been organized for you up to this point in your life. But, you know, when you go to college, you're going to have to do all that stuff yourself. And life has decided that you guys are hitting this point earlier than you should have. So it's time to kind of take personal responsibility and get yourself organized. So that's something I'm going to be stressing a lot, because if they can't do that, then the whole year is going to be this stressed out, anxious mess. And I'm going to get students crying at me again, like I did in the spring. So there were a lot of students in the spring just like, oh, Miss Robinson, I can't do this. I haven't done any of my work. I don't know what to do. I'm so stressed. So, you know, hopefully with, you know, some planning from us and just some time to mentally prepare for it, that'll be a little bit better. But I think if your students don't have this, you know, kind of innate sense of how to organize their work, organize their time, organize their space, nothing else you do is going to matter, because they're just going to fall behind, they're going to get stressed, and they won't do anything. So as you plan these projects, as you come up with ideas, I would particularly find ways of easing them into this and really stressing during projects, this is how I want you to organize it. This is how you can kind of take care of the logistics of this project. And as technical theater people, we understand logistics. Logistics are something we have to deal with a lot. And so they'll learn that, and they will all become the future production managers of America. So again, I don't want to go through every single little thing. If you're looking at one of these resources right now and you want to ask questions, please do. That might be a better way of doing this rather than me going through every single little thing. So I am going to pause my spiel, and we can do questions now.
So thank you guys. That's a lot of great information. I think where we should start, just because it came up once, and Mike, I know you've done a lot of answering this question. You kind of typed an answer, but career tech education might be new kind of terminology for some people. I know we've talked about it in Ohio the last few years. Just kind of explaining how that connects to the old vocational education licenses and kind of what that opens up, at least how it's working in Ohio.
I mean, it's, those people that are, like as old as me, that when we went to school, it was called VOTech, or vocational technology. And, now they've just, rebranded it as career technical education, CTE. But it's kind of the same thing. Nowadays, your high school program can either be at a career center or it can be in a comprehensive high school like mine and Rachel's. Is our career technical program is housed in our traditional high school. So the kids don't have to go off campus or anything like that. It also, the program has to be aligned with a college. So in our case, in both of our cases, because we're close to each other, we're aligned with Sinclair College. It's a local community college. So our kids are able to, they get the credit and they're able to go there. They do 2 years with me, and they get a scholarship that basically pays for 2 years at Sinclair, so they can kind of go for free. There's some extra stuff you gotta purchase, but for the most part, they're able to do that. It's a big draw for kids to be able to do that. So, I mean, that's kind of the basics of career.
Yeah, a lot of ours, like our school, we have 2 programs in our school, and then we have a joint vocational school with all the schools in our county that does that. But the big draw for us is that when you come out of those programs, there is a certain level of certification or a certificate that going into your career, you are ready for base level employment or entry level, or, some type of programming, when that programming builds to a license of some sort. Or
yes, they're trying. Unfortunately for technical theater, the certifications, there aren't a whole lot to choose from. Like if you do IT, there's like all kinds of certifications through Microsoft and all that. But yeah, and I don't, the technicians that come out of my program, I mean, any college they apply to, they're loved because of the level that they get versus a school that doesn't have a program like that. So, which that makes sense. Rachel, I was going to piggyback. First of all, I love that California thing. I'm gonna check that out.
It was amazing. I found so many links today. I saved like 20 things.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm gonna real quick, since I don't see a whole lot, I'm gonna try and do this screen share thing one more time and show you one of the projects that I put on here. And it's a project that like builds upon itself a lot. So I thought I would just bring that up. Let's see, screen sharing. I'm gonna go down here. So I do this project called Tell Me a Story. And the first thing that I do is I have the students write about a 2-page story. That's all it is. I'd like to have 2 pages. And that's all I tell them is write me a story. So they write me a story. And then I tell them after, we do some other stuff. This is how it worked last year. We did some other stuff. And then I come back and I say, pull your story back out. That story is really a stage play. All right. Now, design me a set of what it looks like. So now we get into scenic design. Okay, I create for me a soundscape. What does it sound like? Where are the sound effects coming in at? You know, is there music underneath? Is there what does the pre-show music look like? What does the exit music look like? Okay, we come back to it. Now let's write lighting cues for this. They haven't written a play yet. Playwriting is, you know, that's not what I'm going for. But all right, introduce some lighting cues. What does, you know, what, so we get into that, and lighting, you know, not necessarily lighting design, but we get into that. And then we do costuming. All right, do some Google images. And if you can sketch, what are these characters dressed like? And then we do makeup designs. You know, what is it? So we're trying to hit, oh, and then we do, and then I say, you know what? All you have is a projection screen behind you. So what would projections look like for this story? So we kind of go through all of the genres of technical theater based on this one little 2-page story, which, I don't know, a lot of really good stuff came out of it last year. Last year was the first year I did it. And I definitely plan on doing it again, because it's something that could pretty much be done all online, all remotely. So I just wanted to kind of tell you about that. And it's in there too. Scenic design, tell me a story is right here. It's in there for lighting, and all of the categories are in there too. Oh, I think I had, yeah. Make a prop from like trash from your home for the Tell Me a Story project. You know, based on the story, what might be a good prop? Let's make it, kind of thing. So I don't know. I like things that like build up on stuff. So yeah. All right. Okay.
Mike, one of the questions was about, are there any CTE, like theater related certificates they're getting? I know the one thing that EDTA and USITT are developing the backstage exam, and they're piloting it this year, but I don't know if in Ohio, are you using any of the other, in those meetings, they've talked about other theater certifications that are out there. Do you guys use any?
The problem with the theater certifications that are out there, they're, I think, I'm trying to think now. I know there's like a rigging one, and there's an electrician one, but it takes a lot to get those. Those are definitely higher level certifications. They're not ground level certifications. I know you can get an OSHA certification with the CTE stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know the backstage exam, the reason I know what's going on with that is my school was picked for the pilot, and I know that we have another school in Ohio that was picked. So hopefully we'll have more information, but I know that they're working to develop that to try and push that out to the states that have strong CTE to try and get that basic entry-level theater technician certification out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I was on the committee to like kind of help that, but I'll admit it fell off my radar. So, but I do see it, and I've seen a copy of it, and it's pretty. They've done a really good job with it. You'll have to have some pretty in-depth. It's not surface level. It goes kind of deep.
Yeah, and it's in pilot. I think they said there's only 5 or 6 areas right now, like makeup and
Right.
and hair, wigs, that kind of stuff isn't in there yet. So they're going to be adding to it as they go. But it's got a very good base to start with rigging.
Yeah, it is a very good start.
So the other question that's come up is just for suggestions, like other than breakout rooms, ways to build group work and collaboration. That kind of came up as too. For me, it all kind of depends on what your school's using, because like Zoom has breakout rooms, but some schools are saying you can't use breakout rooms. So
yeah, I read that question and I didn't have a good answer, so I'd hope that Rachel would be able to answer.
I was about to answer that question. I was, well, not with necessarily any idea of what to do. I've never used Teams, so I'm just not familiar with the platform. I don't know if there's some way of like scheduling small meetings between like 2 or 3 of your students and then being able to monitor them, like just sneak in and out of them a little bit. I don't know, because it's nice in Zoom because you can kind of watch them all kind of at the same time, or not at the same time, but it's all within one, thing. But one idea I did have, I did some professional development this week on creating and using hyperdocs, which is basically just a Google Doc with that is collaborative. So like multiple people can be using it and adding content and typing in it at the same time. So maybe there's some kind of project that they can collaborate on and use that application for. That was just my immediate thought, because I just learned a little bit about it. But yeah, that's a tough one if you can't use breakout rooms. There's not a lot of good ways for them to have some kind of face-to-face time, and that's what you really want, unfortunately.
Yeah. Those collaborative features in the Google Drive suite are great because we've used those both in our productions, to create prop lists and kind of be able to have multiple people work on them, especially when our show was smaller this past spring. And so our people were kind of working on it offsite and then coming into rehearsal, but everyone could kind of see it and track those. So kind of embracing the shared nature of Google Docs and Google Sheets, where you can kind of come up with an idea where they can work together and build a collaborative document is a good idea. One other thing that you guys mentioned, the one project, the lighting with using a flashlight at home. I've done that in my class before, and just something to add to that, if you put a toilet paper roll over your cell phone camera, it turns it into a spotlight, and then you can give them the pie plates and mini gobos. And so we did that where they took like pie sheet and then they taped toilet paper rolls to the flashlight on their cell phone. And so it gave them a full good hard edge circle, and then they could make their gobos. So that's just something, if you're doing that at home, if they've got toilet paper right now, they can go ahead and use a roll for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be cool. One of the things that I asked our administration, and I'll admit I was shot down, but so like our special ed kids, they are coming into school and they're coming for a half a day. So I said, well, is there any chance that we could have small groups of students come in? You could still socially distance, do the mask, and you could do all that. Would there be an option for that? I was told no for now, but they said they may consider it down the road. So, that would be another opportunity for some small group collaboration and that sort of thing. I'm going to keep pushing for it to see if we can, like get a max of 4 kids or something, somehow make that happen. So.
I'm bringing Katie Arbor. She's another board member. She kind of sent me a message saying she had some things for collaboration, so I'm going to let her.
Hi, Rachel.
Hello.
Yeah, so I'm at Milford High School, and we are already on a 1-week delay being back fully in person. We were supposed to be this past Monday, and now we're this coming Monday, the 31st. Just a little bit on some of the technical components, and Rachel and Mike, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but we have, we've gotten the green light to use many, avenues for that, such as Zoom and Schoology and Google Meets and all those things. But many things I keep on learning from the technical staff at Milford and from other friends of mine is go slow. Take on what technical elements of those online platforms that you feel comfortable with, and then incorporate, the breakout rooms or what have you. There's still many things you can do if it's just you with the kids on the screen. So I think, because we're so anxious to hold on to something where we can, see the kids and do something fantastic, that we lose sight of, the quality that the kids need of just seeing us and just interacting, and they don't need all those extra levels of things. So I encourage you to keep playing with all those technical elements, but not thinking that you have to like wow them the first week. Build into that, keep learning. But I do think it becomes overwhelming because for me, as a not necessarily computer savvy person, I've been thrown into the fire and learning a lot, but I also don't want to look foolish in front of my students because they're looking to us as our leaders. So I just encourage you guys, one step at a time. You can reach out to me. I now know all 3 forms very well. But I just, don't push yourself too much on that because it just won't be worth it, because then you will get frazzled and you don't need any more stress in this current time.
Yeah, good advice. Yeah, our curriculum, people said pretty much don't get into content till like after Labor Day, which is basically 2 weeks. So we're not, we're kind of easing into that. They were the ones that pushed the breakout rooms. That didn't really, I'd never used breakout rooms before, so it wasn't like on my radar. But we were doing some professional development online, and they were pushing us into, they put us in breakout rooms, and I don't know, I saw the benefit of it. And
one of the people said that Google is adding breakout rooms as well because they're trying to compete with Zoom because they know how many schools are already subscribed to their G Suite for education. So hopefully
they are, and we found out today, Justin, that probably will not be launched till at least mid-October.
Okay.
So be looking for that, but that is not, because we were trying to decide as a district today if we wanted to go to one online platform because Zoom has been crashing a lot because of all the activity. Schoology has.
Oh, Katie, I think we might have lost your audio.
Speaking of Zoom crashing.
Yeah, it's the beauty of Zoom. Sometimes we've had this. That's why we're using the webinar feature, so we don't have to support everyone's audio and video all at once. We have about 8 minutes left. Katie, thanks for that stuff that you were able to share. I'm going to send you back to be an attendee. And then if anyone else, if you want to raise your hand or put any more questions, we got a little bit more time, or if you have specific things about what you're seeing in Rachel and Mike's documents that they shared you want to ask, just we've got a little bit of more time.
Or if you have, if you have things that have worked for you remotely, yeah.
We're all ears here.
I love to feel things. Yeah, I'm open to anything. I will say, so my big 3 days of doing remote learning so far, it's very tiring. It's a lot. There's a lot that you're trying to keep track of and that sort of thing. And I learned something from, and then I'm going to try this tomorrow, from my orchestra director. She said that she spent the last 2 days starting her class with facial expression exercises, because they just have like no expression on their faces. So she's being like, show me your surprise face, show me your, agreeing face, show me your you don't understand face. And I'm going to start that tomorrow because I got to do something. I just, it's just too much. It's just.
When you said the silence, deafening.
It is.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it does get better. I mean, yes, it's only day 3, but it definitely is easier. I don't have a problem sleeping at night. Sunday, I didn't sleep at all because it just like, ugh, what's this? What are we getting ourselves into? So.
I brought on Miriam. She raised her hand. So hi, Miriam.
Hi. So I'm from Massachusetts, and actually went to college with Jason Hammond. So that's how I found out about this.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah. And anyway, so I just want to say thank you. Like, honestly, this hour has like totally saved my sanity somewhat. But so we are not starting school until September 14th is when our kids come back, but we've already been in PD since Monday. We have PD all the way up until 9/11. And we were told on Monday that we are not only teaching live in person to like with like a hybrid model. So like we have like cohorts of kids, but any of the kids that are remote that are in the hybrid model, as well as full remote, because that's an option in our district, we're teaching in front of them as well. So we're being recorded live as we're teaching in person to the kids that are in our classroom. And so I'm trying to figure out like, oh my God, like how am I gonna do all of this at the same time? But you guys have given me some really good ideas and I'm feeling really excited. And I was just wondering, is it possible to like maybe kind of come back together like in like a month or so and just kind of like share like what we've all done and what we've learned and experienced? And just a thought.
It's something that we can explore with the board. We've got, just for people to know, we have our other 6 sessions on Wednesdays, but that's something where in the emails, we can put it out there and see, or through Google kind of move it, to something more informal from this I know Mike he's a big workshop presenter in Ohio for our conference and is always about CTE and helping with the tech stuff. So I don't know. I kind of would leave that up to him if he's interested.
Yeah.
We can figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with doing that. I think that's great. I will say that when they first announced the plans for us to go back, that is exactly what we were going to have to do, what you described. And it did sound like a nightmare at first. And then the more I got to think about it, and they changed to full online. So I didn't think too much about it. But my thought is that the kids that were at home watching us, okay, the kids that were with me, so you're gonna have kids that like are with you, right?
Yeah.
Part of the time, okay. So for me, they were gonna be doing whatever hands-on building project, lighting, whatever I could figure out that they were gonna do hands-on. And then the kids that were at home that day, they were gonna somehow be doing a like design or research or something so when they came back the next day, they could maybe somehow implement it or something like that. But to me, trying to keep everybody on the exact same sounded like just ridiculous.
Yeah, that's kind of what they're expecting us to do. And when they first presented the hybrid models and the full remote, I thought, okay, like a flipped classroom would work really good for this, or worked really well for this. But now they're saying, no, it all has to be. And I'm like, oh my God, but education's not like that.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm like on an island. I'm the only person in my district who does what I do. So it's like,
Yeah. I was going to go as far as build. It was going to be a senior. The first thing they do when they came back is we were going to build 8-foot by 8-foot cubicles on stage. We're not going to use the stage for anything. And they were all going to have their own little cubicle to like build and paint and all of that sort of thing.
Oh my gosh, that would be awesome. But our stage is now housing all the extra classroom furniture in my building.
Mine too.
Yeah.
I'll send a picture. It's really depressing.
That would.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for joining us.
Miriam, I just wanted to piggyback on what you just said because I'm the only person who does what I do in my district as well. Okay. And I have hybrid, online, and in-person classes as well. I encourage you with the hybrid day 1. Talk to the students, say you're not always going to see me, but you will hear me. Any questions you have after the class, just email me, I will respond. So you're just gonna have to be a little bit more, I believe, aware of maybe email communication with them, but just make sure that at least they can hear you if they're not always seeing you, because I think that's an impossibility. And also any days where it's just, you know, a work on your own or what have you, have them there for the first half and then know that they can chime off of that. So it's a little bit more scheduling, but I think it'll keep your sanity a little bit more at ease.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That's really good advice. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask if there are any other questions, because if there aren't, it is 8 o'clock, and I'm going to say, give it a moment to see if there's anyone else who has anything they want to ask. And then if not, I want to thank Mike and Rachel for being here this week, and then just kind of pitch real quick what's coming up. Next week, we've got, I think you guys can see my screen now, session 3 with Tess Bergler from the Ohio Shakespeare Festival, and she's going to be talking about their productions, their social distance productions, and their radio theater that they've been doing since the shutdown happened in Ohio back in March. And so she'll be presenting some of that stuff for some other ideas of creating theater in this time. And then if you are an Ohio theater director and you're one of our, have a thespian troupe, we have our Ohio Thespians Lead Day that's coming up in October, so you'll be getting more information coming out about that in your email. We also sent out this week, if you're an Ohio troupe director, a poll that has some information about some PD offerings and other things that you want to see this year as we're preparing for our conference and all of that. So just make sure you're checking your email for that. And if there's no other questions, then we will see everyone back here next week for our session on radio theater and social distance theater.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.